The great chamber of the Galactic Council hung in the void between stars, a structure so vast that clouds formed inside its upper levels. Thousands of species gathered here, their representatives seated in crystalline chairs that floated in careful arrangement. Each chair represented a voice in the galaxy's future. One chair remained empty. One noticed it again as she glided into the chamber. The human seat, made of Earth's blue crystal, had been dark for 47 sessions now. She was her silver skin catching the light as she moved to her own position. There were traders and diplomats, known for keeping records and remembering details others forgot. One remembered when that seat had been full. "The session begins," announced the Council Prime, a being of pure energy contained in a sphere of light. "We gather to discuss trade routes through the median sector." The discussion started, but one couldn't focus. Her eyes kept drifting to the empty seat. 20 years ago, humanity had arrived in the galaxy with their clumsy first ships and their strange, eager faces. They were young compared to most species. Their planet was harsh, and it had made them tough and creative in unusual ways. She remembered Captain Min, the human who first addressed the council. He had stood before thousands of advanced species without fear, his dark eyes bright with curiosity rather than intimidation. "We come to learn and to share," he had said simply. "We know we're new to this. We know we have much to learn, but we also know we have something to offer." The council had been skeptical. Young species usually were consumed by their own ambitions or crushed by the weight of galactic politics. But humans surprised everyone. When the plague struck 3 colony worlds, killing millions, it was Captain Min's crew that found the cure. They approached the problem differently, thinking in ways that didn't occur to older species who had become set in their methods. Humans became valued members quickly. They asked strange questions that led to new discoveries. They combined technologies in ways that shouldn't work but did. They were persistent, refusing to give up even when logic said to stop. Other species found this annoying sometimes, but useful more often. Then 3 years ago, everything stopped. Human ships stopped arriving at trading posts. Their colonies went silent. Messages sent to Earth received no response. The Council sent diplomatic missions to investigate, but none returned. Not destroyed, just never heard from again. It was as if humanity had simply vanished, taking everyone who tried to find them with it. "Counselor 1, your attention please." She snapped back to the present. Dove the Moth Collective was speaking, her wings shimmering with agitation. The Moth people were gentle farmers and philosophers, uncomfortable with conflict of any kind. "I propose we address the human situation," De said, her voice soft but firm. 47 sessions have passed. Their territories sit unused while species in need could benefit from those resources. I propose we declare humanity extinct and redistribute their worlds." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species nodded agreement. Others shifted uncomfortably. One felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to argue, but what could she say? The evidence suggested Doe was right. "It is practical," said of the granite mines, his rocky form grinding as he spoke. "Resources unused are resources wasted. If humanity has fallen, we honor them best by using what they left behind. We honor them by stealing their homes." One couldn't stop herself. "We don't know what happened, we should." An alarm cut through her words. A bright light flashed at the center of the chamber. The message gate, used only for urgent communications, was activating. A small probe materialized, battered and drifting in the chamber's zero gravity. The Council Prime caught it with a field of energy, pulling it close. "It bears human markings," the Prime announced, "playing message now." Static filled the chamber, then a voice came through. It was tired, rough, but unmistakably human. One recognized it immediately. Admiral Wu Jin, who had commanded Earth's defense fleet. "This is Admiral Wu Jin of Earth Defense Command to the Galactic Council. Stay away. We're handling it. Do not approach the Sol system under any circumstances. Do not send ships. Do not send probes. Do not try to help. This is not a request. This is the only warning you'll get." The message ended. Silence filled the chamber, thick and heavy. "Handling what?" someone asked. "Why won't they tell us?" another voice called out. "Perhaps they've gone mad," suggested. "Young species sometimes collapse under the pressure of galactic society." One stared at the probe. Something was wrong with that theory. Admiral Wu Jin had sounded tired, yes, strained, absolutely, but not mad. He sounded like someone carrying an enormous weight, someone who had made a terrible choice and was living with it. "We should respect their wishes," De said quietly. "If they want to be left alone, we leave them alone." "And if they're in danger," one demanded, "if something is threatening them?" "Then they should tell us," replied. "The Council exists to help member species. If they refuse that help, we cannot force it upon them." The Council Prime's light pulsed thoughtfully. "A vote, then, all in favor of leaving humanity to their isolation." Hands, tentacles, wings, and various appendages rose throughout the chamber. The majority was clear. Humanity would be left alone, their seat to remain empty, their silence to remain unquestioned. One did not raise her hand. As the vote concluded and the session moved on to other matters, she remained still, staring at that empty blue crystal seat. Something was very wrong. In all her years of service, in all the records she had studied, no species had ever told the Council to stay away. No species had ever isolated themselves so completely. And no species had ever sounded quite like Admiral Wu Jin had sounded, like a soldier standing guard over something terrible. After the session ended, one remained in the chamber while others filed out. She approached the human seat, placing her hand on its cool surface. Once, this had been a place of bright ideas and enthusiastic questions. Now it was just empty crystal gathering dust. "What are you hiding?" she whispered to the empty seat. "What are you handling?" The seat, of course, did not answer, but one made a decision in that moment. The Council might be willing to forget about humanity, to let them fade into mystery and eventually declare them extinct. But she wasn't. She had known men. She had worked with human delegates and scientists. They weren't the type to vanish without reason. If humanity was warning the galaxy to stay away, there was a reason. And if no one else would discover what that reason was, then she would do it herself. Even if it meant breaking Council law, even if it meant risking everything. Because something in Admiral Wu Jin's voice told her the truth. Humanity wasn't hiding from the galaxy. Humanity was protecting it. 3 days after the Council session, one stood in a private hangar on the edge of neutral space. She wasn't alone. Next to her stood who had spent 10 years studying on Earth before the silence began. There were linguists and scholars, with blue skin and large, expressive eyes that could see more colors than most species. Ah's eyes were sad now as she stared at the small ship they would take into human space. "Are you sure about this?" Ah asked. "The Council was clear, we're supposed to leave them alone." "The Council is scared," one replied. "They'd rather pretend humanity doesn't exist than face what might have happened to them." A third figure approached from the ship's loading ramp. Sangwoo was human, one of the few who had been off-world when the silence began. He had been studying alien plant life on a research station at the edge of the galaxy. For 3 years, he had tried to get home, but every approach to human space ended with automated warnings driving ships away. "I got your message," Sangwoo said. His face was thin, worn by worry. "You really think you can get through?" "I think if anyone can, it's you," one answered. "You're human. Maybe their defenses will recognize you." The fourth member of their team was already aboard the ship. Dan was a pilot from the shifting sand species, beings who could alter their form slightly to fit different environments. He was the best pilot one knew, and he owed her several favors. This would clear his debt. They departed quietly, jumping through several relay points to avoid attention. One had filed false travel documents claiming they were heading to survey uninhabited systems. If the council discovered what she was really doing, her position would be stripped away and she might face imprisonment. But the risk felt necessary. Their first destination was new, one of humanity's outer colonies. It had been a farming world, known for producing unusual grains that other species found delicious. As they approached the system, Sangwoo tensed in his seat, his hands gripping the armrests. There, Dan said, pointing at the planet. But it wasn't what any of them expected. Nu still orbited its star, but the planet had changed. Gone were the golden grain fields visible from orbit. Instead, massive structures covered entire continents. Factories, enormous and geometric, stretched as far as their sensors could detect. "What did they do?" Ah whispered. Sangwoo's face had gone pale. "Look at the orbital stations." One adjusted their view. The stations that once handled cargo and passengers had been transformed into something else entirely. Weapons platforms, bristling with technology that made her skin crawl. These weren't defensive structures meant to ward off pirates. These were instruments of war on a scale she had never seen. "There should be people," Sangwoo said, his voice shaking. "Millions of people lived here. Where are they?" Dan ran scans. The cities are intact but empty. Life signs are minimal, mostly automated systems. It's like everyone just left. They landed carefully, choosing a spot near what had been the capital city. The streets were clean but silent. Buildings stood undamaged but vacant. In the central square, a monument to the colony's founding still stood, but someone had added new words carved into its base. "We remember why we left. We remember what we fight for." Sangwoo found a data terminal in what had been the colonial government building. His fingers moved quickly across the interface, accessing logs and records. The others gathered around him as files opened on the screen. "This can't be right," he muttered, scrolling through dates. "This says, 6 years ago. No, that's before the silence. Why didn't they tell anyone?" "Tell anyone what?" one asked. Sangwoo opened a video file. The face of a woman in a military uniform appeared. She looked exhausted, and behind her, others worked frantically at computers and display screens. "This is Director, Colonial Defense Coordination," the woman said. "We've confirmed the data from Earth. Long-range telescope arrays detected the anomaly 3 months ago. High Command kept it quiet while they analyzed, but now we all know. Something is coming from beyond the galaxy's edge. Something big." The video cut to astronomical data, images taken from powerful telescopes. One felt her blood run cold. Hundreds of objects, each one massive beyond comprehension, moving through the void between galaxies. They weren't natural formations. They were ships or creatures or something in between, and they were heading toward populated space. Enhanced analysis suggests these entities have consumed matter from at least 17 other galaxies, Director continued. "We're calling it the swarm. Computer projections are not good. If it reaches Council space, the combined military forces of all species would last approximately 8 days. Ah made a small sound of distress. 8 days. That was all the mighty Galactic Council would last against this threat. "Earth Command has made a decision," the director went on. "We will not tell the Council. We will not cause galaxy-wide panic. Instead, humanity will mobilize everything we have. Every world, every ship, every person. We're going to build a defense, and we're going to meet the swarm before it reaches anyone else." The video ended. Sangwoo sat motionless, staring at the blank screen. "They knew," he said quietly. "For 6 years they knew, and they didn't tell anyone." "They were protecting the Council," Ah said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "They knew the Council couldn't stop it, so they decided to try themselves." One accessed more files, finding military orders and production schedules. The scale of what humanity had done was staggering. Every colony transformed into a weapons factory. Every citizen trained for combat. Children evacuated to underground bunkers where they learned war theory alongside their regular studies. Scientists who once cured diseases now worked on ways to kill things that had never been killed before. They abandoned everything, Sangwoo said, tears in his eyes. Music, art, exploration, everything that made us human. They turned our entire species into a weapon. More files revealed the strategy. Humanity wasn't planning to defend their borders and hope for the best. They were planning to take the fight to deep space, far from any inhabited worlds. They would meet the swarm in the void between stars and engage in a war that would either stop the threat or destroy humanity completely. Either way, the Council worlds would be safe. "How many ships?" Dan asked, looking at the production numbers. "Thousands," Sangwoo replied. "They converted everything. Colony transports, mining vessels, even passenger liners. If it could fly and carry a weapon, they used it." One found communication logs, messages between colony worlds coordinating the mobilization. One message caught her attention. It was from Captain Min, the man who had first represented humanity to the Council, but he wasn't a captain anymore. He was a fleet commander now, and his message was simple. "Every sacrifice we make is one the Council won't have to. Stay strong. Stay focused. Stay human, even as we become something else." "They've been fighting for 3 years, Ah said, piecing together the timeline. 3 years of war in deep space, and nobody knew. The probe we saw at the Council, one realized. Admiral Wu Jin's warning. That wasn't isolation. That was a quarantine. They're keeping us away from the war zone." Sangwoo stood abruptly, his face twisted with emotion. "My brother, my parents, everyone I knew. They're all out there fighting this thing, and I've been sitting in a research station studying plants." One put a hand on his shoulder. "You couldn't have known." "I should have tried harder to get home. I should have." An alarm cut him off. Dan was at the ship's communication panel, his form shifting nervously. "We're being hailed. Human military frequency." "Put it through," one said. A face appeared on the screen, a woman in a uniform with tired eyes. "This is Defense Station Gamma. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." "We're from the Galactic Council," one said. "We came to find out what happened to humanity." The woman's expression didn't change. "You were warned to stay away." "We had to know. We had to understand." A long pause. Then the woman sighed. "Stand by for a message from Admiral Wu Jin and prepare yourselves. You're about to see what we've become." The message came through 3 hours later. Admiral Wu Jin's face filled their screen, and one barely recognized him. The man who had once commanded Earth's defense fleet with pride and optimism now looked decades older. Scars crossed his face, and his eyes carried a weight that seemed almost too heavy to bear. "Counselor One," he said, his voice rough. "I remember you. You voted against abandoning us, didn't you?" "I wanted to help," she replied. "Help," he laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to help? Then go back to the Council and tell them to stay away. Tell them to keep living their lives, exploring and creating and loving. Tell them that humanity is buying them that privilege with everything we are." "What is the swarm?" one asked directly. "We saw the files on New. We know something is coming." Wu Jin's expression hardened. "Not coming here. The swarm reached our defensive perimeter 2 years ago. We've been at war ever since." Sangwoo leaned forward. "Admiral, my name is Sangwoo. I'm human. I've been trying to get home for 3 years. Please, let me see what's happening." Something shifted in the Admiral's face when he heard another human voice. "You were off-world when it started." "Yes, sir. Research station on the galactic rim." "Then you're lucky and unlucky at the same time." Wu Jin sighed. "I'm sending you coordinates. You want to see what we've become? Come see. But I warn you, Sangwoo, what you witness might make you wish you'd stayed away." The coordinates arrived, and Dan set course immediately. They jumped twice, each time moving farther from known space, farther from the comfortable boundaries of the Council's territory. When they finally arrived at the designated location, everyone aboard the ship fell silent. Before them stretched a battlefield that imagination. Human ships, thousands of them, engaged something that looked like it had been grown rather than built. The swarm vessels were organic, pulsing with bioluminescent lights, each one the size of a small moon. They moved with unsettling intelligence, adapting their formations as they fought. And humanity was fighting them with calculated ferocity. One watched as a human cruiser, its hull already breached and burning, accelerated directly into a swarm bioship. The explosion was visible even from their distant position, a brief sun blooming in the darkness. The swarm ship reeled, damaged but not destroyed. Immediately, 3 more human vessels moved in, targeting the wound, tearing it open further. "They're using themselves as weapons," Ah whispered, horrified. "Not themselves," Dan corrected, reading the tactical data their sensors picked up. "The crews evacuate to escape pods first. They set the ship on automatic and jump clear. But still, those are their ships, their homes. They're throwing away everything." A communication request came through. They accepted it, and Admiral Wu Jin appeared again, but this time he was on a command deck. Behind him, dozens of humans worked at control stations, their faces illuminated by red emergency lighting. "Welcome to the front line," Wu Jin said. "What you're seeing is a minor skirmish. 3 swarm hunter clusters against 2 of our battle groups. We're winning this one." "Winning?" One couldn't keep the shock from her voice. "You're losing ships by the dozen." "We're losing ships," Wu Jin agreed. "But the swarm is losing more. That's what winning looks like now. Acceptable losses in service of the mission." "How can you talk about your people like that?" Ah demanded. "Because every person in this fleet volunteered knowing they probably won't survive." His voice was flat, emotionless. "We don't have the luxury of sentiment anymore. Every second we debate ethics is a second the swarm gets closer to Council space." Sangwoo spoke up. "Admiral, request permission to come aboard your flagship. I want to understand. I need to see this up close." Wu Jin studied him through the screen. "Why? So you can go back to the Council and tell them we've become monsters." "So I can tell them what you sacrificed." A long pause, then Wu Jin nodded. "Permission granted, but you see everything, the good and the bad, the heroism and the horror, all of it." They docked with the flagship Indomitable an hour later. The ship was massive, a converted colony vessel that once carried 10,000 civilians to new worlds. Now it bristled with weapons and served as a mobile command center. The corridors were from battles, patched and repaired so many times that little of the original structure showed through. Wu Jin met them personally. Up close, he looked even worse. His uniform was clean but worn, and he moved with the careful precision of someone managing constant pain. "Follow me," he said simply. He led them through the ship, and everywhere they looked, they saw humanity transformed. Soldiers too young to be soldiers. Scientists working on weapons instead of cures. Engineers maintaining systems designed only to destroy. But what struck one most was the quiet determination on every face. These people weren't fighting because they wanted to. They were fighting because someone had to. Wu Jin brought them to the command center, where holographic displays showed the entire war zone. One's breath caught. The battlefield they had witnessed was just one of hundreds. Across a vast stretch of deep space, humanity was engaged in dozens of simultaneous battles. "This is our front line," Wu Jin explained. "We meet them here, thousands of light years from any inhabited system. Every kilometer we give up is a kilometer closer to Council worlds." "How long can you sustain this?" one asked. "As long as we have to." He pointed to different sections of the display. "We've learned how the swarm thinks. It adapts, evolves, becomes more efficient. So we've been teaching it wrong lessons. We fight in ways that look effective but lead to dead ends. We make them evolve in directions that will ultimately weaken them." "You're manipulating their evolution," Ah sounded stunned. "We studied every war we ever fought," Wu Jin said. "Every mistake, every brilliant strategy, every desperate gamble. Then we designed a doctrine specifically to corrupt an adaptive enemy. We're making the swarm more like us, and that will be its downfall." A junior officer approached, a woman who couldn't have been more than 25. Her uniform identified her as General Na, commander of a forward strike group. She looked older than her years, her face hard and— "Admiral, the Gamma offensive is ready to launch," she reported. "Proceed," Wu Jin ordered. Na nodded and turned to leave, but Sangwoo called out, "General, wait, can I ask you something?" She paused, looking at him with curiosity. "You're from before," she said, not quite a question. "I was off-world when it started," Sangwoo confirmed. I need to understand, you're so young. How can you command forces in a war like this?" Nuss' expression didn't change. "I was 16 when the swarm reached us. I've been fighting for 3 years. Age doesn't mean much anymore. Experience is what matters, and everyone alive has experience now. Don't you want to do something else? Live a normal life?" "What I want doesn't matter." Her voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "What matters is that when this is over, if we win, people like you get to want things. You get to have normal lives. You get to explore and love and create. That's what we're buying with our lives." She left before Sangwoo could respond. He stared after her, tears in his eyes. Wu Jin led them to an observation deck. Through the transparent hull they could see the battle continuing in the distance. "You asked how long we can sustain this," he said quietly. "The truth, we can't. We're losing people faster than they can be replaced. Our resources are finite. Eventually, we'll run out of ships or people or both." "Then why keep fighting?" one asked. "Because we've hurt them. Badly. The swarm came into this galaxy expecting easy prey. Instead, they found us. We've taught them that this galaxy costs too much. We've made ourselves so expensive that even if they win, even if they wipe us out completely, they'll be too weakened to threaten anyone else for thousands of years." He turned to face them directly. "That's our strategy, Counselor. Mutual destruction on such a scale that the swarm's victory is meaningless. We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to make sure that when we lose, we take them down so far they never recover." "That's insane," Dan breathed. "That's survival," Wu Jin corrected. "We became what we had to become. We're the monsters standing between the galaxy and something worse. And yes, it's terrible. Yes, it's cost us everything that made us who we were. But the alternative was letting the swarm reach council space, and we couldn't allow that." One felt something break inside her. All this time, while the council debated trade routes and territory disputes, humanity had been out here, dying by the thousands to protect species who didn't even know they were in danger. "The council needs to know," she said. "No," Wu Jin's voice was hard. "If the council knows, they'll try to help, and if they come here, they'll die. Their weapons aren't designed for this kind of war. Their people aren't prepared. They'll throw away lives for nothing. They're not children. They deserve to know the truth. They deserve to live." Wu Jin met her eyes. "Let them keep their innocence a little longer. Let them keep being the best versions of themselves. That's what we're fighting for." One insisted on staying for 3 more days, documenting everything she saw. Admiral Wu Jin didn't stop her. Perhaps he wanted someone to witness what humanity had become, to carry that truth back to the council whether they wanted to hear it or not. On the second day, Sangwoo received a message. His hands shook as he opened it on a private terminal. Ah stood nearby, giving him space but ready if he needed her. "It's from my brother," Sangwoo said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Wu, he's alive. He's stationed on a stealth corvette operating behind swarm lines." "Can you meet him?" Ah asked. "He says his ship is returning to a forward repair station for maintenance. He'll be there tomorrow." Sangwoo looked up, his eyes red. "He says he wants to see me before the next deployment." The way he said it made Ah's chest tighten. Before the next deployment, as if there was a strong chance it would be the last time they'd see each other. Admiral Wu Jin arranged transport to the repair station. a converted asteroid that had been hollowed out and filled with repair docks and supply depots. The journey took 6 hours through what the humans called secure space, though their sensors picked up evidence of recent battles everywhere they looked. Debris fields, damaged ships limping toward repair stations, evacuation pods waiting to be collected. The repair station was chaos organized by desperation. Dozens of ships in various states of damage filled the docks. Repair crews worked around the clock, welding hull breaches, replacing weapons systems, doing whatever they could to get vessels back into fighting condition. The air smelled of metal and burning and something chemical that made one's eyes water. Sang-woo found his brother in a small rest area designated for waiting crews. Wu was thinner than Sang-woo remembered, his face marked by scars, and his left arm was gone, replaced by a mechanical prosthetic that looked functional but hastily attached. When he saw Sang-woo, his face broke into a smile that looked painful, as if he'd forgotten how to make that expression. "Little brother," Wu said, standing, "you actually made it." They embraced, and Sang-woo couldn't stop the tears. "What did they do to you?" "They didn't do anything to me," Wu said gently. "I volunteered, we all did." They sat together while Wu explained what his life had become. He commanded a stealth corvette called Shadow Runner, one of dozens that operated deep in swarm-controlled space. Their job was reconnaissance, marking targets, and sometimes executing surgical strikes on swarm command nodes. "We go in quiet, map their formations, find their weaknesses," Wu explained. "Then we get out before they know we were there. Sometimes we plant mines or sabotage their supply chains. It's dangerous work, but someone has to do it." "Your arm," Sang-woo said. Wu glanced at the prosthetic. "Lost it 6 months ago. Swarm Scout found us during a reconnaissance run. Had to manually reroute power while the ship was under fire. Took some shrapnel, lost the arm, but we made it out." He flexed the mechanical fingers. "This works almost as well. Doesn't get tired, doesn't shake. Actually better for precision work." The casual way he said it made Sang-woo feel sick. His brother was talking about losing his arm like it was a minor inconvenience. "How do you live like this?" Sang-woo asked. "How do you keep going?" Wu was quiet for a moment. "You remember when we were kids and you got sick, that fever that almost killed you?" "Vaguely. I remember it clearly. I was so scared. Mom and Dad were terrified, but the doctors fixed you and you got better." Wu smiled slightly. "I remember thinking that someone had to invent that medicine. Someone had to figure out how to save you. Those people probably never met you, never knew you existed, but they worked hard anyway because they knew their work would save lives." "What does that have to do with this?" "We're those people now. The council species don't know us, don't know what we're doing, but we're working hard anyway because we know our work will save them." He looked at his mechanical hand. "Every battle we fight, every ship we lose, every person who dies, it's all buying time and safety for billions of people who will never know our names." "That's not fair to you," Sang-woo said. "No, it's not," Wu agreed. "But life isn't fair, the swarm isn't fair. What matters is what we do with the unfairness." He looked directly at his brother. "You were off-world when this started. You got to keep being a scientist, keep exploring, keep learning. That's good. That's what we're fighting for. I should be here helping." "You can help by remembering who we were." Wu's voice was firm. "When this is over, if any of us survive, we'll need people who remember that humans were more than warriors. We need people who remember music and art and science done for curiosity instead of war. Keep being that person for us." An alarm sounded through the station. Wu stood immediately. "That's my ship. Repairs are done." "Already," Sang-woo stood as well. "But you just got here." "We don't have time to rest. The swarm doesn't rest." Wu pulled his brother into another embrace. "I'm glad I got to see you. I'm glad you're safe." "Will I see you again?" Wu pulled back and his smile was sad. "Maybe, maybe not. But if I don't make it back, remember that I chose this. I chose it because it matters." He left before Sangwoo could respond, disappearing into the chaos of the repair station. Sangwoo watched him go, then collapsed into his seat, his whole body shaking. Ah sat beside him, saying nothing, just being present. Eventually, Sangwoo spoke. "He's going to die out there." "You don't know that." "I do. You heard how he talked. He's already made peace with it." Sangwoo wiped his eyes. "My brother is going to die fighting monsters in the dark, and billions of people will never know he existed." "Then we make sure they know," Ah said firmly. "That's why we're here. That's why we're documenting all of this. The Council will know. Everyone will know what humanity sacrificed." Over the next 2 days, they met more people like Wu. General Na showed them the forward command post, where officers barely out of their teens made life-and-death decisions affecting thousands. They met medical staff who had run out of proper supplies and were improvising with whatever they could find. They met engineers who kept ships running with spare parts in desperation. And they met families, because even in the middle of war, life continued in small ways. Children in the underground bunkers who drew pictures of stars they'd never seen. Couples who married knowing they might not survive the week. People who found moments of joy in the darkness because giving up on joy meant giving up on everything. On the third day, Admiral Wu Jin called them to the command center. "The swarm is massing for a major offensive," he said, pointing to the tactical display. "Intelligence suggests they're going to try to break through our lines and push toward Council space." "Can you stop them?" one asked. "We're going to try." His face was grim. "But this will be the largest battle yet. We're committing everything we have left." "How many ships?" 3,217. The number came out flat, emotionless. "That's every combat-capable vessel we can field. If we lose this battle, we lose the war." Dan studied the display. "The swarm outnumbers you 5-1. "They've outnumbered us from the start. We've made it work before." Wu Jin turned to them. "I'm sending you back to Council space. What happens next you don't need to see." "We should stay," one argued. "We should witness." "You've witnessed enough." His voice was hard. "You've seen what we've become. You've seen what we've sacrificed. Now go back and tell the Council. Tell them why we left our seat empty. Tell them why we told them to stay away." "What should we tell them about this battle?" Ah asked. Wu Jin smiled, but it was the saddest smile one had ever seen. "Tell them we fought. Tell them we bought them another day, another year, another century of peace. Tell them that when the darkness came, humanity stood in its way." They left the Indomitable that evening. As their ship pulled away, one watched the human fleet assembling for battle. Thousands of ships, each one carrying hundreds or thousands of people who had volunteered to stand between the galaxy and destruction. "They're going to die," Dan said quietly. "Maybe," one replied, "but they're going to make it count." As they jumped away from the war zone, the last thing their sensors picked up was the battle beginning. Humanity's fleet moved forward as one, accelerating toward the swarm mass with determination that bordered on fury. And somewhere in that fleet, people like Wu and Nai and countless others were fighting for a galaxy that didn't know they existed. Sangwoo sat alone in his quarters for the entire journey back, staring at a photo of his brother from before the war. Before the scars, before the mechanical arm, before the weight of fighting an impossible war settled on his shoulders. He stared at that photo and wondered if he'd ever see that person again, or if the war had taken his brother long before the swarm could. One called for an emergency council session the moment she returned. The Council Prime tried to refuse, citing her unauthorized journey into restricted space, but she invoked an ancient protocol rarely used, the right of testimony in the face of galactic threat. Once invoked, the Council had to hear her. The chamber filled slowly as species from across the galaxy gathered. Many were annoyed at being summoned. Some were curious. All of them remembered the empty seat that had haunted their sessions for 3 years. When one stood to speak, she felt the weight of everything she had witnessed. Behind her, Ah and Dan stood ready with the documentation they had gathered. Sangwoo sat in the human section, staring at the empty blue crystal seat. 3 years ago, humanity went silent, one began. We assumed they had fallen to some internal crisis. We assumed they had abandoned us. We were wrong. She gestured, and the first images appeared in the air above the council floor. The swarm, massive and terrible, moving through the void. The chamber fell silent. 6 years ago, human astronomers detected this approaching our galaxy. The swarm, a hive intelligence that has consumed 17 galaxies before ours. Computer analysis suggests the combined forces of the Council would last 8 days against them. Murmurs of disbelief filled the chamber. Counselor stood, his rocky form grinding. This is impossible. Our defense systems would have detected something of this magnitude. Human systems are more sensitive, one replied. They saw what we missed, and when they realized what was coming, they made a choice. More images appeared. Human colonies transformed into weapons factories, ships by the thousands, populations mobilized for war. The Council watched in growing horror. They didn't tell us because they knew we couldn't stop it, one continued. So they decided to stop it themselves. For 3 years, humanity has been fighting the swarm in deep space, thousands of light years from Council territory. They've been dying by the thousands to buy us time we didn't know we needed. Dove the Moth Collective stood, her wings trembling. Why didn't they ask for help? Because help would have meant more species dying for nothing, one said bluntly. Our weapons, our tactics, our entire military doctrine is designed for territorial disputes and pirate raids. The war humanity is fighting is something else entirely. They became what they had to become to fight it. She showed them footage from the front lines. Human ships using themselves as weapons. Soldiers too young fighting with grim determination. The calculated savagery of a species that had studied every war it had ever fought and designed something worse. This is barbaric, someone called out. This is survival, one shot back. While we've been debating trade routes, humanity has been standing between us and extinction. While we've been creating art and exploring new worlds, they've been dying to preserve our right to do those things. Sangwoo stood suddenly. May I speak? The Council Prime hesitated, then nodded. A human voice hadn't been heard in this chamber for 3 years. Sangwoo walked to the center of the floor, standing beneath the empty seat. I was off-world when the war started. I didn't know what my people had become until a few days ago. I met my brother at a repair station. He's missing an arm, he's covered in scars, and he commands a stealth ship that operates behind enemy lines. He has a 70% chance of dying on any given mission. His voice cracked slightly. He told me he was glad I got to keep being a scientist. He was happy that I got to keep exploring and learning. He said that's what they're fighting for, the right for people to be more than warriors. The chamber was completely silent now. My brother is probably dead by now, Sangwoo continued. There was a major battle 3 days ago. I don't know if he survived, but he chose to fight anyway because someone had to. Because if humanity didn't stand against the swarm, no one would. He looked up at the assembled species. You want to know why humanity left their seat empty? Because they were afraid you'd try to help. They were afraid you'd throw your lives away trying to save them, and they couldn't bear that cost. They'd rather die alone in the dark than watch other species suffer for their sake. One took over again. The battle happened 3 days ago, as Sangwoo said. We've been monitoring human military channels. The fighting lasted 17 hours. She paused, and the chamber held its breath. Humanity lost 942 ships, approximately 230,000 personnel killed, another 100,000 wounded. The numbers hung in the air like accusations. But the swarm lost more, much more. Human tactics worked. They taught the swarm to adapt in ways that weakened it. They fought with such ferocity that the swarm broke. New footage appeared. The swarm fleet, or what remained of it, retreating into deep space. Human ships pursuing but not too far, maintaining a defensive perimeter. The swarm is fleeing, one announced. Scattered, depleted, and unlikely to threaten this galaxy again for thousands of years. Humanity won. Cheers should have erupted. Celebration should have filled the chamber. Instead, there was only stunned silence as the cost of victory became clear. Earth's population before the war was 12 billion, one said quietly. It's now 2 billion. Their colonies, once thriving centers of culture and learning, are industrial zones. An entire generation grew up knowing nothing but war. They sacrificed everything, their art, their music, their exploration, their very identity, to save us. Counselor De spoke softly. What do we do now? We help them rebuild, one said. We dedicate every resource we have to restoring what they lost. We. Message incoming, the Council Prime interrupted, from Admiral Wu Jin. The Admiral's face appeared, and he looked even worse than before. His uniform was burned in places, and blood stained his collar, but he was alive. Greetings, Galactic Council, he said, his voice hoarse. I understand Counselor One has shared our situation with you. I want to be clear. We didn't fight this war for gratitude or recognition. We fought because it needed to be done. Admiral, the Council Prime said formally, the Council wishes to express. I'm not finished. Wu Jin's tone was sharp. We fought this war, we paid the price, but we can't keep paying it. We need help rebuilding. We need resources, personnel, technology. Not charity. We'll work for everything we receive, but we can't do it alone anymore. You'll have everything you need, the Prime assured him. Good, because the swarm isn't the only threat out there. Wu Jin's eyes were hard. We've seen what's beyond the galaxy's edge. We've learned how unprepared the Council is for real threats. That changes now. Humanity will maintain a defensive force, but we need the rest of you to step up. We can't be the galaxy's only guardians. We understand, the Prime said. Do you? Wu Jin challenged. Do you understand that we became monsters so you wouldn't have to? Do you understand that thousands of my people are dead because we valued your innocence more than our own lives? One stepped forward. We understand, Admiral, and we will honor that sacrifice by ensuring it was never in vain. Wu Jin studied her through the screen, then nodded slowly. Captain Min will return to resume his position as Earth's representative, but understand that the human who sits in that seat will not be the same one who left it. We've changed. We've seen things, done things that can't be undone. The seat will be ready, the Prime said. The transmission ended. For a long moment no one spoke, then stood. I propose a new treaty, he said, his voice unusually soft for a granite mind. Complete resource sharing for Earth's reconstruction, Council military forces to train with human advisors, and a formal acknowledgement. Humanity saved us when we didn't know we needed saving. The vote was unanimous. 3 weeks later, Captain Min walked back into the council chamber. He wore a military uniform now instead of diplomatic robes, and his face bore scars that hadn't been there before. He walked slowly, with a slight limp, but his back was straight. As he approached the human seat, every single council member stood. It started with one, then others, until the entire chamber was on its feet. Thousands of species, all standing in respect for the one that had saved them. Min stopped, staring at them. For a moment his careful control cracked and tears ran down his face. Then he composed himself, bowed slightly, and took his seat. The blue crystal glowed as it recognized its owner once more. Thank you, Min said quietly, for standing, for understanding, for giving us a reason to become people again instead of just weapons. The Council Prime's light pulsed warmly. Let this be remembered. On this day, the Council learned that humanity's greatest strength is not their weapons or their tactics. It is their willingness to sacrifice everything for those they've chosen to protect. Even those who would never know, they added softly. The session proceeded, but everything had changed. When Min spoke, everyone listened. Not out of fear, though there was some of that. Not out of pity, though there was some of that too. They listened out of respect for a species that had looked into the darkness and refused to let it pass. One watched from her seat, feeling something she couldn't quite name. The galaxy was safe now. The swarm was gone. But the cost had been staggering, and that cost had been paid by one species while the others remained ignorant. After the session, she approached Min. "How do you live with it?" she asked. "How do you sit here among us knowing what you know?" He was quiet for a moment. "I remember why we fought, not just to save lives, but to save the kind of galaxy where art and exploration and peace are possible. That galaxy still exists because we bought it with blood." He looked at the chamber around them. "This is what we fought for. Seeing it continue makes the cost bearable. Almost. And the nightmares never stop," he admitted. "But neither does the choice to keep living, keep trying, keep hoping that maybe one day we'll remember how to be the people we were before." Sangwoo received a message 2 days later. His brother had survived the battle, though his ship had been heavily damaged. They were being rotated back to Earth for shore leave and medical treatment. The message was short. "I'm alive. I'm coming home. Tell me the stars are still beautiful." Sangwoo cried as he wrote his response. "They are. Thanks to you, they still are." The galaxy moved forward. Human colonies slowly transformed back into homes instead of fortresses. Children who had known only war started learning music and art. Ships designed for destruction were retrofitted for exploration. It would take generations to heal, generations for humanity to become something other than warriors again. But they had time now. They had bought that time with everything they were. And in the council chamber, the blue crystal seat glowed with quiet light, no longer empty, but occupied by people who had learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes love for others means becoming something terrible to keep them safe. The council had left Earth's seat empty out of ignorance. Now they left space around it out of respect, a reminder that somewhere in the dark, humanity had stood guard while the rest of the galaxy slept. And should darkness come again, they would stand once more, because that's what guardians do. They tremble stars themselves to ensure others never have to.